Welcome. So ACEs, we all have an interest, that's what's brought us here. For me, my interest, it comes from both my own lived experience, from a trauma, being a looked after child in care, fostering, and at 16 living in a hostel, to now being and the abuse, I've got that one. To now being a recovery coach, and I specialise in adults overcoming adverse childhood experiences. So I'm going to hand you over to the next panellist, who's Elaine Wilkins. And Elaine, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Elaine Wilkins, as Bev said, and I am the founder of the Chrysalis Effect. And we work specifically with people with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, and fibromyalgia.
Hello, everyone. Yes, so you've already heard. My name is Patricia Warby. I'll stand forward, apparently. I'm what's termed an avoidant personality. I don't know if anybody know attachment styles. I'm an avoidant, so that means usually I'll be the one at the back of the room going, don't talk to me. But what's really interesting, actually, is that ACEs are so common. Now, when I looked back at my childhood, I would have said I had a normally dysfunctional childhood. It wasn't particularly traumatic in the sense of abuse or neglect, but there were elements in my childhood which caused me to have, unbeknown to me, the effects of trauma. And it sort of led me now to study trauma, and my PhD is in the effects of trauma on the body, because I think it's really important you understand it's not just a mental construct, and it affects everything about you, your personality, your well-being, your life choices. And so I'm so passionate about it. I'm so glad that Beverly has invited me today. And I look forward to answering whatever questions you're going to fire at me at the end. And I hope I'll be able to answer them. But thank you anyway.
So for me, I stumbled across ACEs through recovery from, like many people, childhood trauma from mental, physical, sexual abuse and neglect. And I've been in recovery now for 19 years and will be forever in recovery. But I stumbled across health and wellness, and that's what I've created, the Cleaner Living Therapy Programme, which is trauma informed. And my charity was set up in 2016 to deliver this programme. Very slow going, like most of us with our practices and our programmes, but it is ACE informed. And I'm proud of that because I didn't know it at the time when I created it and wrote it. So I must have known something, so that's good. So I'm really proud to be here as part of the panel, and thank you for inviting me with these lovely, lovely ladies, and I just look forward to answering your questions later on. Okay, thank you.
I come for myself.
Welcome, Christine.
I am a survivor.
Welcome.
It has been awful.
Yes.
I've just experienced everything in there. Not only me, but the ladies that I've been with since going into a refuge. And I've seen it there. The way I've been treated is classed as what I would class as re-victimisation, and I'm reporting institution abuse and organisation abuse, and basically I've been looked at as stupid, I've been called a rebel, childish, and I have to ask for toilet paper.
Well, I would say, I'm glad you're a rebel.
I'm not a rebel, I've got a voice now.
And that's great.
And that's through the Truth Project.
Nico and Chrissy. And I'm glad you've got a voice. And as a survivor, I hear you. And Chrissy also hears you too. And I will be connecting with you afterwards. And thank you. Thank you for using your voice tonight.
I spent time living rough and in prison. That broke up a period of living rough. As an alcoholic as well. Now working 12 steps. And I just wonder what some of the people that I've experienced on my travels or whatever journey have been people who can least afford access to, say, a range of different therapies. So, I mean, how could this be spread, say, through prisons or...
Well, this is where, by raising awareness of ACE, and I know that Roger, you're in the audience somewhere, here's Roger. Roger's also part of an ACE awareness campaign and wants to put together a conference, as Elaine was saying earlier, because the more people that have access to this, it means the more people have an understanding. So, for instance, doctors, practitioners, schools, if they have an awareness of ACE, then it becomes an everyday policy. And regardless of a financial cost, you have access to other care as well. So I do hear you, Nick, and I absolutely, I'm passionate about this. I find it very hard to contain my words. I'm now going to pass on it a little bit more for other people, because I could just sit here and answer everybody.
Yeah, just to give you hope on that, when we went to the Glasgow conference, they had the senior politicians there, and they had somebody who'd been working in homicide for many, many years, and because that they're putting into action reduction in violence campaigns and things, the government are directing a lot of funds into it from nursery level and up. So it is happening in Scotland, and that's why we've got to raise the voice and raise the awareness in the UK, because that's exactly part of the conference. They had a huge arena, and all those individual charities and different programs and initiatives were there, and they are receiving or applying for government funding. So the funding will become available, because you saw the figure there, the cost of not addressing this.
It's just hard to kind of square all this with a government that starves councils of resources, for instance, or schools or hospitals, and that's going on, and that's nationwide.
Yeah, and that's what's got to change, and I suppose I guess that's going to be the driving factor, really, isn't it? But behind what we're doing. Chris, do you want to comment on?
Yeah, which?
Yeah, just we need a cultural change in this country. It's simple as that. So once we can get this ACE awareness out there at all levels, on an individual level, on an institutional level, and on a society level, government level, legislative level, then that's where the change comes. But the awareness needs to be put out there first, and more people need to come and watch this film, or this film needs to be sent out to them so that they are aware that they can save billions of pounds in public money if they have this understanding, and if they put it into the lower level, through the schools, through the healthcare system, we can save billions of pounds. But it's a whole cultural shift. And in America, you can see they've been doing this for 10, 20, 30 years. So it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen overnight, but that's not to say we can't get the ball rolling for this to happen. So in my work through the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, they are actually getting the information, the impact of child sexual abuse from victims and survivors that are coming forward, and through the research project and through the public hearings. So we are gathering a lot of information together from victims and survivors of child sexual abuse in that area as to these adverse childhood experiences in order to tackle the government in 2 years' time to say, look at what child sexual abuse does, look at the damage it causes, look at the impact on mental and physical health, what are you going to do about it, and put in place robust recommendations to actually get this ball rolling, you know. So it is really important that we are here, and then, you know, every single person in this room can go out and share this information with 5 or 10 other people, and then that's how we get that cultural change happening.
Thank you.
A lot of the time the abuse is normalised to them. I mean, I come from a family of 5. Our abuse was hidden behind a upper middle class family, very well spoken mother. a screen that people still cannot comprehend that a mother will hurt her own children. We went through school in a classroom full of children being children, unable to even concentrate because I've long become an adult. I'd like to know how this is going to be spread across, because abuse is predominantly seen as something that happens in poor, low-income families, kids in care. It's very much hidden in the middle and upper classes behind. It needs to be across the board.
Absolutely, Rosa. And what I will say is the first showing in Kent of this film was at Tunbridge School in Kent, which was a private school.
Brilliant.
It's steps, it's little steps. It's frustrating, and I hear you. That's why, personally, I use my voice to raise awareness of sexual abuse. Let's not hide from it. Let's not pretend it doesn't happen. It does. Not everybody's able to have a voice and raise that awareness. That's why thank you to those who are able to. For the other people who aren't able to, do you know what? We're all here together, and that's okay too. But your story through the Truth Project is valid as well.
Our mother started with verbal abuse, and this is how it breaks children down until the abuse became sicker and more twisted and went on to sexual abuse. We were gradually broken down. Children need to be aware clearly and not feel isolated because they think, or alienated, or left without a voice. All forms of child abuse need to be made very clear.
And that's where, as adults, by having the conversations, by opening the conversations, we're able to break the cycle and raise awareness, because until, as adults, we're able to have these conversations, how are we then expecting our children to be able to have a conversation back? So I hear everywhere that what you're saying, and thank you both.
The large majority of children are abused within the family home. So when we're speaking about educating parents on how to safeguard their children and what signs to look out for if their child's being abused, what if it's the parents abusing their children, where do they go? It's never safe when you're abused at home.
It can't be left down to the parents
Because
of that fact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it has. But that's why I would say adults. Because adults, it's the caregivers around that child. And as we know, a lot of abuse happens within the close family. And it's great to be able to have this conversation now, because we're talking about a subject that is very uncomfortable for some people. But unless we have this conversation, we don't raise the awareness. So thank you, Rosa, because what you're saying, we know as facts, and this is the kind of environment that we want to expand on and raise awareness, so that in the end, because children do already talk to a certain extent with each other.
I'm currently running a fostering agency, which is a not-for-profit agency. It's attached to a charity for young people needing care. A vast number of the young people that we deal with have experienced abuse in their life. And I would like to see this film shown to every single social services department in the country.
I am one of those children, so I'm with you.
I really wanted just to talk a little bit about the intergenerational nature of trauma. I really want to raise that point, because just by having this conversation now, we are able to prevent this happening for future generations. Because when you deal with your own trauma, and there's nobody actually in this room who doesn't have some, even me or a few of you who haven't had a terrible childhood, we all have trauma to some degree. And when it is unaddressed, this is where we unconsciously transmit it to those we have relationships with. Now, that's whether it's our children or our peers. And so it's just really starting this conversation, I think, that's going to have huge effects, as it has done in America, where we are able to stop this chain from passing on. Because you have to ask yourself, what creates the mindset that enables a parent to abuse their own child? Where does that come from? They're not born evil. They are taught and trained, and their brains are formed in a certain way that allow them to do that. And we really need to have this public health conversation, I think, to change that mindset.
I just want to quickly add here that when I watched this for the first time, I sat there and I did the ACE score myself, and I got 10 out of 10. Not a gold star, but oh my God, really. I need to really understand the impact on me and understand the impact on my health. I've been very fortunate to actually discover that health and wellness is a good way to recover from trauma, and that's where I come up with my programme. And when I come across this film and I thought, oh my God, my programme addresses the ACEs, but I never knew about the ACEs. I just sort of fell on it. So it's really, really important that we understand that we can all control our own health outcomes if we understand how we're impacted in the first place. So by doing that ACE score analysis for yourself, you can then sort of like go, well, actually, what areas of my life can I actually help sort out? How do I manage my stress? Is it big rock stress? Is it little rock stress? How do I actually deal with that? And for me, it was going to a counsellor for the last 3 years to actually offload what was impacting me from my childhood, from 0 to 15. And that's been very impactful for me. And again, having not been able to access these services, these specialist support services, is very hard, as you said, Sarah, up there, for people that don't have the income to do that. We do rely on the NHS for those services, and my going through that has not been a good experience. And I'm fortunate enough now to be able to afford my own specialist support therapy, and it's been so beneficial. And the fact that you can offload what is going on for you is so important, because as soon as you start offloading, the body can start to heal itself. In my opinion, the best way that anybody can start to heal is to start to talk. Find that safe person to talk to, and it might not be a family member or a friend, it might have to be someone like a counsellor, but it's got to be the right person. And I fight for and want specialist support services available to every single person that wants to come forwards and access those services, and that's what I fight for on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I was just going to say that what this is going to be instrumental in is transforming our health service.
Yeah.
It's away from a disease-focused service that focuses on just treating symptoms, just like Dr. Harris was saying, putting a band-aid on something. So what we're looking now is the root causes of things. You know, I mentioned earlier that we work with ME, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. I started presenting at the doctor's surgery very young with IBS and all kinds of illnesses, but not at any time did they ever look at what was going on around me.
Yeah.
I've got a ACE score of 6. And of course, when you do start to read the implications on your health, of course, the exciting thing, and it's the work that we look at with Patricia, is there is great news, is that yes, you might have a really rotten ACE score, but with the understanding now of epigenetics and how we can make sure that those, when we've got the right interventions and the right support and the right buffering, that actually those things can be reversed. So, you know, take heart. If you've sat there tonight and thought, oh my God, and started ticking boxes, I know when I did mine.
Yeah.
But the realisation that, and if you think about things like chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, all of these things, they are medically unexplained, really, and that's because of the acute model. So I just want to hand over to Patricia, because it's the model, isn't it, Patricia, really, that's causing the problems, and this is really what's going to take us into a 21st century approach to health, so that we're being empowered from children to understand how to honour our well-being above all else.
Okay, I want to introduce a new term to you, which is the biopsychosocial model of healthcare, which means it's not just your biology, it's not just your psychology, but it's also your social environment, what happens to you, and the meaning of what happens to you. Because for all of us, we have an interpretation of our environment, so it's not just we all suffer the same things, but we feel certain things about what happens to us. And this new model is a great lens through which to see both disease, but also what constitutes health. And I think we have to work a lot harder today on being our own advocate for health and well-being by having these conversations, but also by taking responsibility for our own health and well-being. Of course, we all need help and support, and we need institutions that give us what we need, but we need to take up the mantle ourselves in the first instance and start to say, what do I need and how am I going to get that from the people around me? And it may be that it's not your family of origin that you can turn to because, you know, you may have had historical difficulties with them. But there are those of us who are working in this model now, and we are having conversations across the professions with this new biopsychosocial model of wellness, which says it's everything that counts. And so when we use that lens, I think we start to see that there's nothing that you discount when you look at your own health.
And as you were saying, if we start looking after ourselves, then it has a massive impact on those around us, our family members and the next generation. So I've just recently found out that there's generational abuse in my family. And when you start looking at it, it's quite, well, it's an eye-opener for one, but it's also quite shaming. But at the end of the day, it's not my generation's fault about what fathers, mothers and granddads and grandmas did. But it is my responsibility and my duty to make sure that the impact on me doesn't pass down onto my children. So as you were saying, taking your own individual responsibility and understanding and knowing where to go and get the help and support is really, really vital.
I believe that I'm suffering with vicarious trauma or post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm saying to my doctor, who can give me the diagnosis, you know, saying psychiatrist, saying I've got bipolar. So now I'm on number 3, psychiatrist. They put me on medication for epilepsy and a learning difficulty, and I'm apparently having mood swings. I'm saying, well, if I'm having mood swings, how could I have been employed with children with learning disabilities, with mental health, supporting people with mental health? I'm here today because of what's happened to me and to support ACEs.
Will you be asking your doctor what his understanding or her understanding of ACEs are? Because maybe then...
Yeah, she just sat and said, we get called out to the refuge and they don't let us in.
No.
Ding dong,
Yeah.
ding dong.
We need to talk to you afterwards.
Yes, we'll talk to you afterwards, Chrissy. Really, because there are steps forward that you'll need to take, and we can possibly help you with that.
Because of my, the abuse as a child, because of that, I believe I've gone into a relationship of abuse.
Yes.
And then I was on number 3 abuse.
And that's more than
likely. And I was on 1, 2 and 3.
Yes.
And now, when I've gone to the doctor, I don't know me backside from the elbow.
No. Well,
I'm having flight of ideas currently.
And I appreciate that, Chrissy. What we'll do, we'll speak to you afterwards because we're short on time for questions and answers. Could you pass the mic to the lady in front of you?
Can I just ask that ACEs is like a diagnosed criteria? Like ACEs, like
Well, it will help.
Post-traumatic stress disorder covers a wide range, but
It will.
I believe that my trauma is actually ACEs.
Right,
Yes,
Chrissy,
we'll
we'll
come
speak
from
to
that.
you afterwards. Well done.
Yeah. Can you pass that to Cherry? Thank you very much, Chrissy.
My name's Cherry Rudge and I'm a professional hoarding practitioner and trainer. So what you've been describing, I've come across manifested physical form in people's homes. So whether it's chaos, disorganisation, hoarding behaviours, addictions to whatever it might be, including purchasing or acquiring, compulsive acquiring. And often it's 99% of the time, it's often to do with lack of control in their lives. So what we aim to do is trying to give them a voice to be able to talk to us about what's happened to them, and often we're the first people who they've ever told that they've been abused or raped or whatever it might be. And it can take several visits and several sessions before they're prepared to open up and actually start working with us to do some physical lifting, shifting, moving, or create a plan of action that's going to make them feel better and make their homes more functional. And it's why I developed something called the Hoarding Icebreaker form, which is something people can download off the internet. They just print it out, tick it off, and there's loads of questions that relate to what the problems are and how it's affected their health, so they can take it to a GP and start a conversation.
So now you've watched the film, Cherry, my question back to you is going to be, would you feel comfortable now with the ACE question yourself, speaking with your clients, so that it opens up earlier?
Yeah, we do have the medical conditions that I come across is really enlightening. And so I would really like to know whether the ACE survey included chronic disorganisation or hoarding, actually.
Well, they're symptoms of the cause, and that's the cause, so it's different.
I just want to comment that a lot of these diagnoses that people are talking about, you know, bipolar, ADHD, I can't list them all, oppositionally defiant disorder, all these new ones that are coming in. Do you know what they all are? Is trauma. They're just labels. Diagnoses are labels because, I don't know if you've heard, but there's a book called The Disease Delusion. It's written by the father of functional medicine, Jeffrey Bland, and he talks about our need to classify as human beings. We like to classify things. We like to say this group of symptoms equals this thing. And now we've called it this thing, there's this handy little drug that deals with this thing. Oh, and it has side effects, so now you need another drug to deal with the side effect. And so you end up on multiple medications, some of which don't help you at all, and the side effects are actually worse than the original condition. So do you know, trauma is at the heart of most of this, and it's creating a dysfunctional and costly, actually almost bankrupt medical system. So we do need to do something. We start with these 10 questions, but obviously it then develops the conversation to talk about some of the coping strategies of people with trauma, including, for instance, hoarding, alcoholism, addictions of all kinds. They are not the issue. The issue is what drives those behaviours.
Yeah, my name's Paula. I've got a diagnosis of bipolar myself, and I very much see that as a result of the trauma I had in early childhood. I was diagnosed very young. I think I was privileged enough to be part of a generation with early intervention, and I'm very grateful to it. I'm now trained to be a psychotherapist, and I'm in my second year, and I'm really aware that there is, because in the video it said the highest proportion of ACEs when they were asking was it was psychotherapists. And it is not talked about, and it drives me insane. I find myself in training, in supervision. I'm the only one who's actually honest about their experiences. I bring myself into the work. I do peer work outside as well in my day job. I talk about my experiences with people in secondary mental health care. So I suppose in a way I'm just kind of voicing that, but I wonder if you have awareness of it, or if there's, I don't know, maybe any work around it, because not just psychotherapists, but particularly psychotherapists who are working with people with trauma, even if you've not had it in early life, which you're likely to have, you're going to get traumatised continuously by hearing the stories, and there's not enough support.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually attended in May 2016 the British Psychological Society Forum, and out of 7 presenters who were all psychologists, 6 of them were sharing their own experience, so it is filtering through, and also there's a time and a place, because if you're working with your clients as well, it's not your space, it's their space. But as we started off saying, opening this conversation has been fantastic. We are going to have to finish now for time restraints. However, a few of us can stay behind afterwards and have a chat. Chrissy, we do want to quickly speak with you. I'd just like to say thank you for everyone coming here. For every one of you that have come here tonight, over the next few days you'll be sharing the message. For all of those people that I already know here as well, personally, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. It just means such a lot. I know that every conversation now is different once you've seen that film, isn't it? I think it's just incredible the ripple effect that's going to have when you're just talking to just your next door neighbour. I love the fact that this is in the hands of the people now, and I think the more we gather together, the more we're going to make the transformations we need in all areas of social wellbeing, really.